Hey, everybody, welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast hosted by two comedians who love the Cubs but do not live in Chicago anymore. I am one of them. My name is Adam Mamawala. The other one is Kevin McCaffrey, and he's out on the seven seas telling jokes on a cruise for potentially the last time. I don't think he's enjoying it very much, but I am joined today by Zach Sims, a fellow comedian, and a big Astros fan. How's it going, man?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Anything interesting going on?
I guess so. I know. I think Will Harris signed recently. I have some opinions on that. I assume that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, it's going to be awkward when he walks into the locker room and has to talk to Howie Kendrick.
You think that would be weird? Yeah,
it probably would be because it's like a pretty significant thing. But it's it's not the first time something like that has happened. In any case, it is not a coincidence that we are talking to you, or that I am talking to you on this solemn week for base. Like, it's kind of grim, honestly. And first of all, follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Zach, where can people follow you to get your hot Astros takes?
Oh, I tweet about baseball constantly. I have at also Zach Sims, ZACHSIMS on all things.
Nice. All right. Well, first of all, I just want to say from a Cubs fan to you that I want this to be a safe space for you.
Oh, good.
I want you to feel welcome. I don't want you to feel scrutinized by anything I ask you. And if at any point anything that I say makes you uncomfortable, I want you to just bang a trash can.
Sure. There you go. Yeah. Well, that'll be a good safe word for us.
Oh, man. So just give me, like, when I watch World Series highlights from 2016, just seeing Addison Russell involved really bothers me. Like, that, like, corrupts it for me in some way, even though we didn't know any of that stuff at the time.
Sure.
So just like I want to start with like a broad view. Like, what are your emotions right now?
Well, this is probably a hot take, but I think maybe what Addison Russell did is a little worse than stealing balls and strikes, but I get what you mean. I have a variety of thoughts and feelings. I probably am not as intense, don't have as many intense feelings as other people do.
Yeah.
I doubt that the next time I have like 10 minutes to kill and I'm watching Astros highlights, I'm going to be thinking, oh, was this legitimate? What happened? That's just my perspective as a fan. But it's not great.
Yeah. It's a bad look.
Yeah, sure. Well, they've had a series of bad looks over the past 18 months. So
yeah, I mean, the Taubman thing was particularly bad.
Sure. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm assuming you also agree that was not good.
Sure. Well, in general, I mostly, I'm not from Houston. I'm from New Orleans, but I've been a fan my whole life. So I don't always know what the true deep world of Astros fans feel about things. I'll go on the subreddit. But in general, it seems like people mostly all agree that the Taubman thing was bad and that the punishment makes sense. I think more people are mad that they fired Lunau and Hinch.
Right.
I have varied emotions on that. But in general, it all checks out to me.
Well, let's start with just what Manfred did. How do you feel about the punishments imposed by Manfred? So that you basically have a $5 million fine, which is, I think, the biggest fine that they're allowed to fine anybody.
Sure.
Loss of first and second round draft picks for the next few years, and then Hinch and Lunau being suspended for the next year, and then obviously, Crane did what he did. But in terms of what Manfred laid down, do you think that was fair? Do you think it was over the top? What are your feelings on that?
That all seems fine to me. I also am a Saints fan, so this is the second time I've had a coach suspended for a year, in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought that was much more egregious. I can talk about that in 2012 on a football podcast. Right. But for this, I get more. It seems fine. I'm going to feel differently than other baseball fans will about the things that happened. That's just, we have different perspectives.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can't do that. I have people that I feel bad for in this whole thing.
Who do you feel bad for?
I, in some ways, feel bad for Alex Cora, just because I think his career is going to get ruined, and I just like him. He seems like a decent guy.
Yeah.
And I feel bad. I don't know what's going to happen to Beltran, and maybe he'll just be fine. But I just feel bad that he's getting pulled into this too. I just always really liked him. He's a Hall of Famer, you know.
Yeah, but can you really feel bad for people who like actively did the wrong thing over an extended period of time?
I mean, I can. I just told you that I did, Adam. I certainly can.
You can do whatever you want, but are you saying that from a perspective of like just loving the Astros and being kind of a homer, or is it more from the perspective of like, oh yeah, everybody cheats, they just got caught doing it?
Well, I would say I'll bring it back to the Saints bounty scandal. I apologize if I'm sure there are people listening who don't care about football, but that was a scenario where literally this is a thing that's been going on for decades, where people have been trying to hit people really hard, and so that felt more like we're just trying to make this go away, and we're going to throw a bunch. Although there's also similarities. I believe that both scenarios, like the commissioners knew about it before and told them, hey, maybe you should stop doing this. And then they continue to do it. But this seems to be more focused on just a few people. So, I mean, they definitely messed up. I mean, I have my own opinions on how much that affects the outcome, you know, of a game.
I want them. I don't hold them in. I want all your opinions.
Well, you know, I want to respect. If I was a fan of some of these other teams, I would be upset. Maybe not to the degree that some other people are upset.
Like if you were a Dodgers fan or something.
Sure. I mean, I can tell you 7 things they fucked up. Can I swear on this?
Yeah.
Okay. I can. They just made so many mistakes in that World Series and have blown so many playoff series. I have a hard time being like, oh, this was the one that they got cheated and they should have won. But I'm sure I would be upset. Absolutely. I think Yankee fans probably have more right to be upset. When you look at 2017, we won every home game, you know, we played that series.
Right.
But I think sports are a very personal thing and everybody has their own emotional attachment to it. And I like to respect how other sports fans feel about their teams. But I just have, you know, I would be more upset if I found out that they were stealing signs on every pitch of every game for the past 5 years, and just none of these guys are capable of hitting baseballs. Yeah, that would be a bummer to me. But you know, I don't know. I don't feel quite. I understand why other people would feel differently, but I'm not really gonna be like. I'm not gonna really feel super tainted about these things.
Well, but to me, you know, when you're obviously nobody is dumb enough to think that the Astros are only good because they were stealing signs. Like obviously these guys are incredibly talented baseball players, but when you're talking about the series against the Yankees or the series against the Dodgers that came down to a 7th game, that competitive advantage.
Did the Dodgers score in that 7th game?
What's that?
What was the final score of the 7th game of that World Series?
5-1, I think.
Yeah, they scored 1 run. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I think you got to score more if you want to get in on this argument. You know.
There's a degree of apologist here that I'm sensing from you that I think is very. I understand it, and I probably I can't. You know. I'm trying to think about how I would feel if this exact thing had played out with the Cubs, and I don't know. You know, I think Cora could really be done here, because if it's proven that not only was he kind of the one spearheading the efforts in Houston, but also tried to take some of that to Boston, and then of course they won the World Series the next year, it doesn't look particularly good from him. Basically the report, and I'm sure you've read everything there is to read about it, unless you just, you know, you'd rather avoid it, but basically what I've read is that Hinch was aware of it, wasn't a big fan of it. So much so that he actually like destroyed the TV monitors a couple times, but didn't go so far as to actually stop it. Which he's in a tough position. I think that amongst athletes, and especially I think baseball even more than other sports, there's almost that thing like there is amongst cops where it's like, this is a brotherhood, and like even if something bad is going on, we're still going to cover for each other, and this doesn't get, you know, it doesn't leave the clubhouse, which is why I would think that a lot of these guys are not overly happy with Mike Fiers.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, he's lucky that he does not have to step in the batter's box against the Astros at any
point. Oh, I know. Well, yeah, I guess. But yeah, certainly he'll get a fun reception when he comes to Houston. You know, with Oakland. Um, yeah, Mike Fiers did some great stuff for us in 2017. So I have mixed emotions about Mike Fiers as well.
Well,
Um,
I guess what I'm driving at here is like, let's just talk about Hinch. What is his level of responsibility and culpability in this? Like, do you think he and Luno are scapegoats, or do you think that it does come down to them as the people who are leading the organization to have been responsible for this?
yeah, I think that's fine. I would like feel more. I'm fine with them firing him. I don't really have that straw. I think that's a pretty good job. If you're a managerial candidate, you probably want to be a manager for that team. So I'm not like super bummed about that. I liked AJ Hinch fine. Jeff Luhnow never really seemed like a great guy. I don't really watch baseball for the rich white guys in suits, making
not that rich white guys don't own most sports teams anyway, but
oh yeah, well that's I mean, that's kind of my next point is like I would think that like Jim Crane firing them was like a nice moral stance more if I didn't know that Jim Crane's not a great guy and much like every rich, white billionaire sports owner is. But I do like in the sense, let's see, how do I want to put this? I like if the move to firing them is partially because it seems that Jim Crane also is just a big baseball fan. If it is like this just seems bad as somebody who likes baseball and I don't like this and I don't want it. I think that's cool is not the right word, but I support that.
Do you believe that he really didn't know about this?
Oh well, who, Jim Crane?
Yeah,
I don't really care. I haven't spent that much time thinking about it, but I would believe that more. Then, like, Lunhow released a statement that seemed like weirdly just throwing people under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just multiple times said that he didn't do things that he clearly did. So I don't really buy him not knowing. I do think in general owners often really don't know what's going on. So I would believe that.
Yeah, or it's the sort of thing where it's like, hey, these are the results I want. Just make it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Basically, the criticism of Luno is that when there was the scandal involving the Red Sox with like the Apple Watch or whatever, Manfred sent out a like league-wide notice, like put teams on notice. This is like mid-September of 2017. That was like, hey, this is a real issue. If any of you are doing anything like this, knock it off right now. And it was like up to that point, you were going to get a pass because it hadn't been like fully established that, hey, maybe don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, Luno did not distribute that email or pass that information along to anybody else. Okay. So that's where his culpability lies, is like you were put on notice and you did not convey this to the rest of your organization. So that's, I think, the rationale in getting rid of him.
No, that's super fair. I think, too, when you look at just as somebody who's been an Astros fan, the narrative on him before 2015 was kind of him sucking. And kind of nationally was kind of a mockery in this. Mm-hmm. And also, I think they felt that he misplayed, I want to say, Mark Apple. There was some contract stuff with draft picks. Ended up leading us getting Alex Bregman, so it worked out fine on our end. But
well, yeah, and I mean, obviously that Chris Bryan is the next draft pick. So
oh, sure, I like our third baseman fine, but I understand. But there was moral issues with him kind of the whole time. So
yeah.
Obviously winning kind of wipes away those things. Honestly, in some ways, well, we talked about this a little bit, but I also, there's just from my perspective through this experience, I know like 4 baseball fans in my life. And I've like brought this up while I was going on to people, and I just see their eyes glaze over. They just have no interest in talking about it. So it's not really the personal hell that it would be for me if it was football or more nationally recognized sport. Oh, geez, I feel like I lost my train of thought. But I'm not super shocked by any of it. I think they've been doing kind of patriotsy shit for several years now. And if they're going to do that, I would just like them to win more titles. You could argue that this will hurt their window. I'm more concerned about their pitching depth going forward than anything else, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, basically it seems like Manfred felt that it wouldn't really be possible to penalize players for this. Like it was more of, and I think that probably is the right. There's a part of me that feels like that's a little empty because you want to see guys who like knowingly did the wrong thing have to face some sort of consequence for it. But I don't know how you would possibly enforce that or determine like the degree to which each player utilized the information they were getting.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I don't think you would be able to figure that out. I probably, as a football fan, I don't really care about the Patriots, who have clearly cheated, several times. I don't really feel like, these guys need to be hung up or whatever. But that's also my perspective. I don't care about these types of things as much as certain other sports fans do. Now, if I was a fan of a football team that got beat by the Patriots, I'm sure I would certainly care about it, or if the role was reversed. But I, in general, just from a guy who's a fan of the team and really likes the players on that team, this does not really affect my opinion on the players on our team, I would say.
So knowing that they knew what was going on and were using it, it doesn't affect your image of any of those guys?
No, but I don't really look at it. I don't really look for sports. It's nice when people are nice, and I like good people, and I don't like it when, I think that there are athletes who do criminal things that they probably should not still be playing professional sports, and that's not great. But in general, I don't have kids, so I'm not like looking for a role model for my children at this moment. So I mostly just enjoy the personalities of these guys and how they're very good at baseball, and it seems like they messed up. And, they'll get to be booed in every stadium, across America for many years.
That's going to be interesting. Yeah, sure. I was thinking about that. Like, you have to think that literally every road game, certainly this year, they're going to be dealing with.
Oh, sure. Well, there's nothing sports fans like more than to get to yell at somebody they think is a bad person. Sports fans are a big fan of those moments, So I mean,
in terms of like road crowds hating a team, I think this coming season for the Astros will be the most dramatic example of that since like that first year that LeBron was in Miami, where like it just became a thing to actively hate this group of guys.
Sure, and we'll see how they handle it. I've seen times when it
might be good for them in a way.
Yeah, they've taken a lot of heat off of it and really thrived off it. So I think there's a chance, that happens. We'll see. I would not be shocked if this could be a little bit of an ugly year, but we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I think Bregman especially seems like the exact sort of guy who like loves to be booed.
Oh yeah, he loves it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's he's the ultimate. You love him when he's on your team, and you hate him otherwise kind of guy.
I always was a fan of his, and then I feel like this postseason in particular, he was like cocky to a point that I hadn't seen before, and it was kind of off-putting. But I mean, you could say the same thing about Soto, I guess.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, but he honestly didn't have I was more disappointed he didn't have a great postseason. I would have loved for him to have had a better postseason, but yeah, sure. Absolutely.
But I was talking to one of my closest friends is a big Red Sox fan. I was talking to him this morning about what he thought was going to happen with Cora, and his opinion was that Crane being so decisive in firing Luno and Hinch was probably in part due to how poorly they handled the whole situation with Taubman. Do you think there's any truth to that? Like they had to try to get out in front of it as much as they could?
I believe that. I mean, if this is the first, I mean, obviously nobody's going to call this a good PR move because everybody hates him anyway. But if this is the first decently handled PR move, then that's good.
Yeah.
I read his statement. He wrote like a statement to the season ticket holders. Mm-hmm. Fine, seemed very apologetic, yada, yada. It's tough. You got to feel bad. I personally, at least, feel bad for the fans, particularly if you're living in an area where you're going to take shit from people,
Although, who are you going to take shit from? Rangers fans? I mean, what do they have to say?
Sure. Yes. Yes, you will. Yeah. You don't live in Texas, my friend. It's, yeah. They don't even have a ring. You can imagine how mad Rangers fans would feel to lose 2 World Series. See the Astros win one and then have this happen? Absolutely. I don't think it helps them nationally that the 3 teams they beat in 2017 are like the 3 of the biggest fan bases, in America. It's probably not going to, help. I'm certainly not wearing my Astros hat, around New York, anytime soon. That's to me, one of the great tragedies is I just can't listen to my baseball podcasts for, a few months and whatnot.
Well, it's interesting you say that because right when all of this came out and it was in mid-November when all of this was kind of breaking news, I remember seeing a guy very proudly wearing an Astros hat on the subway, and I was like, all right. I mean,
sure. I respect that, honestly, just as a fan of the team. I think, there are people who would look at that like he's wearing like a MAGA hat in some ways,
It's just a little brazen.
And I support my man in his Astros hat. He's proud of his team. He's proud of, the team that he's a fan of. But, I think personally, just from my perspective, I don't, as a guy who doesn't play for the Astros or isn't affiliated with the Astros organization, I'm not going to let this discolor what was one of the great sports experiences of my life, because I just don't really have to. Right. I get why other people would feel that way, but I don't really need to.
No, I think I think most Astros fans probably feel the way you do.
But I'm also not looking to go screaming at somebody who feels. There are also Astros fans who just want to yell at other people who feel differently than them. I'm not really looking at confrontational in that way.
I just think this is a perfect opportunity for them to change Minute Maid back to Enron.
To Enron, yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Just go all in evil.
100%. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I didn't expect you to respond to that.
No, that's fair. I just, I think that sports fans like it when they get to pretend that these guys, we're good, but these guys are evil. Oh, they're such bad people. We're great people over here. We don't do anything, but these guys, they're so bad.
It's hard. I think it's you want,
but you also don't want to be the guy like when like the Osuna trade happens, which I hated. It also, sucked and all these things. You also don't want to be the guy who's like looking up the other teams that have signed domestic violence guys and it's like, oh, they did it too. That's not a look I'm trying to have.
No, of course not. I mean, the one of the things that was most egregious about the whole Taubman incident is that he was yelling and bragging about a guy who just blew a save.
I know. Well, I always thought you're absolutely right. I always thought that shouldn't be on the team, of course, but if you wanted to pull him aside and go, man, I'm really happy that we got you, just to try to make sure his confidence is okay going into the World Series.
Yeah, to him, not to a bunch of
absolutely. But to shout, of course. No, of course. Well, I said, I told you on Facebook too, I basically just do podcasts now where I talk about the Astros doing bad things. But I said on another podcast, I think one of the issues you have with this organization and others is that you have this kind of influx of guys who are coming in from like the tech world and finance, which is an equally aggressively toxic world to be a part of.
Yeah.
In baseball, which is also toxic, in its own way. So I think you just, there's a lot of dipshits running baseball teams right now saying.
Well, and look, there is a lot at stake. There's a lot of money involved. And you look at the Astros. I mean, the Cubs traded for Aroldis Chapman ostensibly because they realized they had their shot and they were going to compromise whatever, moral quandaries they needed to make it happen. And in the same way, the Astros had that tough loss. They were, very close to getting through to the LCS in 2015 when the Royals came back. They missed the playoffs in 2016 and the pressure's probably mounting in 2017. Like, we need to do it with this group of guys. We have to make it happen by any means necessary. And if that becomes pervasive within an organization, that it's like a win at all costs sort of mentality, which I think is just how professional sports are in general. It shouldn't be that surprising that this kind of thing has happened.
Oh yeah. I mean, I immediately, when that stuff came out, I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure they probably did that. I was not super shocked to find out that it was a thing that had occurred. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go.
No. I just, it's a big story. And I wonder, you have to think that MLB is now trying to follow up any leads that they have with any other teams. Because obviously they're looking into the Red Sox stuff, but I find it very hard to imagine that the Astros and Red Sox are the only teams out of 30 who are doing this kind of shit.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why if I was a fan of another team, I probably wouldn't be talking too much and dancing around, I imagine, I have multiple thoughts. Like I would think that the Dodgers probably did not, just because I read like a little thing of Bellinger talking a little smack, which is his right, and I respect that. But I imagine he probably wouldn't be doing that if they had also done the same thing. But also, we will see. I also think when things like this happen, commissioners really want it to go away, and they really want to be able to say it was just this and not talk about it again. So I don't know.
I mean, it's this is kind of a dramatic example, but it's almost like the when there's like a terrorist attack, they always want to be able to be like, oh, it was like this one guy.
Sure.
Like it becomes easier. It becomes easier for people to digest if they can say like, oh yeah, this is like an isolated thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Which it never is, but
No.
yeah, that's we don't live in not everybody gets punished for the things that they do. We don't live.
I'll say one last thing before I let you go. I was watching MLB Network today, and Ron Darling was talking about it, and he had an interesting take on the whole Hinch like destroying the TV thing. And his feeling was, I wasn't there, so I have no idea. But people are assuming that he was doing that because he was unhappy with the fact that they were cheating and he didn't condone it. But it's also entirely possible that him smashing the TV was out of frustration with his team. Like, you come into the locker room after losing 10-1 and you're like, you guys know what's coming and we still can't fucking hit the ball.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean? Like there's a world where that's also a way that it could have gone down. It's hard to say. I mean, it would purely be conjecture for me to have any opinion one way or the other, but I thought it was an interesting interpretation of that.
Sure, that could be. That's there are many, many possibilities why. I mean, sadly, just knowing what's coming doesn't always mean that you're gonna still hit the ball. Lance McCullers threw, I think, 25 straight curveballs in Game 7 of the ALCS. I think they knew what was coming. Doesn't really mean you're gonna hit it all the time.
Well, it's almost. I think it's a little akin to you and I can take steroids, inject steroids every day, and we will never hit a 101 mile an hour fastball. It's just not going to happen. But the point is that it's all the competitive advantage thing. If you're Barry Bonds, he would have been a Hall of Famer without steroids. Sure. But when he started taking steroids, instead of hitting the ball 400 feet, he was hitting the ball 500 feet. And that sort of thing starts to make a difference when instead of a warning track out, it's a home run every time. Sure. Well, I think it's a little similar to that.
Yo, absolutely. No, I think there's a big similarity to that. I also am a guy who I'm not going to say I feel bad for Barry Bonds, but, I certainly still think he should be in the Hall of Fame. But it's absolutely, he was a Hall of Famer before, and the Astros were a great team without doing this. So there are similarities in those things. You bring it back to the Patriots, too. There's almost like Nixon-y elements, these kind of things to me always, which is like you're already winning. You're doing great, but you're so paranoid and scared about something not happening that you're willing to cheat or do these things that you don't really even need to do to succeed.
Right. Well, that's actually a good point in that, like, one of the things that was so off-putting to me about them trading for Osuna was that they had already won. Like,
sure. No, I hear you, and I feel the same way too. And I also felt bad. I also think that that's like doesn't really make it better or worse that that's the case. But I also think that's a valid way to feel. And
I'm not saying that the Cubs have some moral high ground because they traded for an asshole.
I know, and I felt the same way. Yeah, we talked about it when it happened, and I agree. It did seem odd for them to do that right after they won 100%.
Yeah. In closing, any other thoughts?
Go Stros. Let's
Sorry about the Saints.
Now, let me ask you, because I also, in fairness, have not followed this fully exclusively just because I don't really need to feel bad about my sports team all the time.
Yeah, I don't know that I would be like voraciously reading stuff if it was
I just don't need it, but I understand, I think Passon seemed to have done a very good job reporting. Did they say anything about 2019? Because I read a brief thing that they did not find anything for 2019, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I believe it had stopped. I don't think they were doing it this year.
Now, I will say I love that because this year was probably my favorite team they've had this whole run, and I love that playoff series and that Altuve and Correa walk-offs. I'm going to be watching that. That was so great.
I mean, listen, as much as I am a little turned off by this whole thing, there's no world in which I'm not happy about Altuve walking off Aroldis Chapman.
Oh yeah, sure. No, that was There's a moment where Springer hits a 3-run home run in Yankee Stadium, and this bearded, very Jersey hoodie Yankee jersey guy just
Yeah.
levitates with rage, and it's one of my favorite things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Are you
And
one of those people where it's like you get as much joy from watching Yankees fans be angry as you do from watching Astros fans be happy?
Oh yeah, well, one of the benefits of this story is that it has made Yankee fans madder, which is one of I'll sign up for that.
I mean, John Boy is a Yankees fan.
Sure,
he was involved. He was very involved in this.
Of course he is. I like those videos. Seems like a funny guy.
They're incredible.
Yeah,
and that particular video where he breaks down the banging of the trash. I think against it's against the White Sox, but it's very. You can hear it pretty clearly.
No, yeah, I might not be shocked I didn't watch that video, but I'm sure that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but even though they didn't cheat this year, supposedly, I'm sure baseball's pretty happy that the Nationals won.
Honestly, I was. I would have loved if we had won, but after the Taubman stuff, I was just kind of like, all right, let's.
Yeah.
I was kind of ready for this season to end.
Yeah, I was already. Rooting for the Nationals anyway, just because they were a fun story, and usually it's like if a team has already won, I was fine with the Astros winning in 2017 because they hadn't won in a long time. It was just more fun as a neutral party to root for the Nats this year. But both from the all the Taubman stuff, and then even that kind of weird obstruction play, I feel like that would have been a huge. You remember the play
yes, you're right. Yeah, 100%.
Had the Nationals not come back in that game, that would have been a big thing, more just from people shitting on umpires perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, they're a fun team.
So
go Nats.
Will you go to Yankees Astros games in New York next year?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't need to do that to myself.
Just go sit in the bleachers and get your teeth knocked out.
Yeah, I don't. There's no need. Yeah. I went last year. It was very fun. I got to go to the one game they won. It was great.
Oh, you went to the LCS?
Sorry. I went to the one regular season game. I went to they lost 3 out of 4 of the Yankees in the regular season, but I went to the one.
Guess they had the last laugh.
Yeah, I guess so. We beat them. But anyway, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat. And you got anything to plug?
When does this come out?
Tomorrow.
Oh, I don't really have anything to plug, but I'm going to be at Rod Stewart Live at La Quavita in Highland Park.
Oh.
So come to that. And don't beat me up if you're a Dodgers fan. I'm sorry you guys haven't won a World Series.
Yeah, you better keep a low pro out there, right? Zach is in LA right now. So
I know we got to go, but one of the things I find so wild and respectfully about the Dodgers is that they've just had nothing but futility, and Kershaw's given up 47 home runs in the World Series. They're in the playoffs, and they've just fallen on their ass. But they could still win 3 out of 4 titles next, and I wouldn't be shocked. They're so talented. This run will just keep going.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a big Dodgers fan who, before last season started, was like, I almost hope that we don't even get to the World Series because I can't deal with us making it and losing again. Then you're getting to early 90s Buffalo Bills territory.
Yeah, absolutely. But they're an iconic franchise. They're a hell of a team.
Yeah. This year that's a brutal way to go out.
Yeah, it's kind of goes into why I don't feel quite as bad, but but I guess this time when Kershaw gave up the home runs, it was not his fault. But the other times maybe they were. But I
feel bad for the guy. I like Kershaw. I like Kershaw. I feel for the guy.
No, I do too.
But all right, man. Thank you for hopping on. This has been another edition of Away Games. We are, as we are most weeks, sponsored by Thrive Fantasy. Are you a fantasy guy? Do you ever do any of the fantasy apps?
Football, but not baseball.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Zach, if you're interested in getting free $10, you should go to Thrive Fantasy and use promo code Away Games. How about that?
Oh, can't wait.
I can see he's doing it right now, everybody. I promise. All right, I'm Adam Amawala. This is Zach Sims. Kevin will be back next week. We may have another special guest on. We'll let you know about that. In the meantime, hopefully the Cubs do literally anything, and I will talk to you guys soon. Later.